back to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing my review for Thor, Love and Thunder. So this might be a little bit of a spoiler review as well. I might talk a few things in my likes and dislikes that will spoil the movie. But it seems the movie's been out for over a week. I think, I don't mind doing a little bit of a spoiler review. It is. So the movie is directed by Taika Waititi again, who comes back from the previous Thor movie, Thor Ragnarok. He also stars in this as the voice of Korg. Movie also stars Chris Hemsworth, Natalie Portman, Tessa Thompson, come back as their usual characters. You have Christian Bale is the new villain in the movie, Gore the God Butcher. The cast of the Guardians of the Galaxy returns for the beginning of the movie. Alexander, actress who plays Sif, comes back for a cameo. There's a few cameos in this movie as well from previous Thor movies as well. So a little bit about the story is, after being spurned by his god on his planet, Gore unfortunately loses his daughter, comes face to face with his god, who kind of ridicules him, and as his god just killed another dark god who had the Necrosword. The Necrosword corrupts Gore. Gore kills his god and vows to destroy all gods. So the rest of the movie is pretty much Gore trying to get Stormbreaker to open up a portal to get to the Eternal so he can make his wish that you think is pretty much destroy all gods. You also get Jane is back in this, but unfortunately she's fighting cancer. She is, but she gets Mjolnir, if I said that right, kind of contacts her, not contacts her, but she senses the hammer and all that is the one that's broken, so she goes to New Asgard, which it's there in a little display case, and that's how she becomes the new Thor, the mighty Thor. And then you have also Chris Hemsworth for trying to find his place in the world. So he's been on a few adventures with the Guardians of the Galaxy. I think they've had a guts full of him. They have. So, but he goes off after learning about Gore the God Butcher to deal with that. So the rest of the movie is him, Valkyrie, Korg, and Jane trying to get back after the first attack on Asgard, New Asgard by Gore. He kidnaps a load of kids, so pretty much them trying to get the kids back and stop Gore. So my first thoughts of this movie is, my expectations for this movie were very low. They were. I love the story of God the God Butcher and the Mighty Thor with Jane, who's battling cancer, by Jason Aaron's. He does a brilliant job with them stories in the comics, so I recommend going to read them if you've never read them. I definitely recommend that. But unfortunately, for an under 2 hour movie, it doesn't do the story's justice. So I will go into my dislikes now, because that's going to be my first one of my dislikes. I don't have many dislikes for this movie. It's pretty much 2. But unfortunately, the story for this, like I said, for under 2 hours, it does not do the original stories by Jason Aaron's justice. It doesn't. They've done way better in the comics. I honestly think this movie and Gore the God Butcher deserved a 2-3 movie run. It is. They could have easily expanded it perfectly for 2, maybe 3 movies, and we could have got a really great villain again. And I'm not saying he's not a good villain in this. He is a really good villain. He's got his motive, similar to like Thanos and that. It is, where they have good motivation of why they're doing what they're doing. But unfortunately, he doesn't get a lot of screen time. But what Christian Bale, when he does have a screen, he eats up the scenery. He's a brilliant actor, and you can tell the difference between him and the other actors in this movie. He elevates the scenes, he does. But like I said, he's a one and done villain again. Unfortunately, he does die at the end of this movie. It's really is a shame, because Marvel do have a habit of having these good villains and then one and done in them. Like the best villains in the MCU are the recurring ones. So obviously you've got Loki and Thanos are the two that come to mind. They're the ones that are in, you know, all the time. So, you know, and people love them. They become fan favourites. But yeah, they have a habit of killing off some of the good villains you're never going to see again. The only other thing, my other dislike for this is this movie is very comedy orientated. It is. It's very heavy in the comedy. It's pretty much a full blown comedy movie, really. It's just like practically every other scene is comedy. It is. I think looking into the movie and all that, 2 maybe 3 scenes where they have serious scenes where he actually plays it as serious and doesn't bring the comedy into it. There's other parts of this movie as well. It's like when Jane's fighting cancer. They've made her more of a joke, not a joke, but they made her more comedy. She pulls off more jokes than what she did in previous movies. So you don't get a lot of that serious aspect for the movie, and the majority of this movie, the storyline is very serious. Like the God Butcher and the Jane cancer thing, it's very serious storylines, but really is played very jokey, unfortunately. But that's Taika Waititi for you and all that. He kind of done the same in Thor Ragnarok, but that was pretty much a load of comedy as well. But it's not as much of this movie, and I really do prefer Thor Ragnarok to this one. And like I said, with the storyline as well, it just doesn't do it justice. And it didn't, like some of the storyline aspects in Thor Ragnarok, like Gladiator, Hulk, and all that. You're never going to get Planet Hulk and World War Hulk down the line, unfortunately. And I really would have loved to see them. And it's the same as this one. Gore the God Butcher is one of my favourite reads, comics I've read in the past. Whatever, I can't remember when it came out. There's 10 plus years and all that. It's one of the better storylines, and they do it much better in a comic. And I know you can do more in a comic than you can in a movie, but that's why I said they should have spread it out over 2 movies, and then they could have done the Jane Foster, brought her into it maybe in the 2nd or 3rd movie, and then continued her story. And I think could we get on to her story in the comics is much better, and you get Malik, is it, back, the Dark Elf. He comes back, but unfortunately they've killed him off in the Marvel movies as well, the MCU. So it's very disappointing, it is, that you're not going to see some of these characters again. It is. You might see Jane Foster, like I said, it's a spoiler for you. She does die at the end of this movie. It's one of the sadder moments where she sacrifices herself to try and save Thor and the kids and that. But they're my only 2 really dislikes of the movie at the end of the day. It's pretty much them 2. But they're unfortunately heavy on the movie. My likes are, first of all, the acting is great most of all. Can be a little hammy at parts and all that, especially when the comedy hits. Especially with the Zeus scene and all that, when they go try and recruit the new army, so they go and find Zeus. So they're not in Olympus, I can't remember what the place is called now. But they go there and it's all like the major gods in the world, like all the top gods. But he tries to recruit them, but Zeus is kind of a dickhead. He's a bit of a prick, in other words, and all that. And he doesn't care that other gods are dying because they're lowly gods. They're not big, the big gods. But they play him off as a really comic character. They do. He doesn't seem too serious in it and that. But they do have a nice little fight scene. Him, Korg, and all that. Korg for lady thing. They have a good fight scene there. But yeah, the acting is good for the most part. Especially, like I said, Christian Bale is kind of the standout of this movie. The visuals are very nice in this movie, very bright in parts, but my favourite visuals of the movie is when they have to go to the dark world to try and save the kids. But it's a trap, but it's all in black and white, and the only colour is parts of Thor, Valkyrie and Jane. It is, when they're doing their powers and all that. It's the only colour you see there. And it felt a bit of like it was practical work as well as CGI. It's probably all CGI, it's just the way it was done. But it reminded me a bit of, if you've ever seen if you've got Peter Jackson's King Kong on DVD or Blu-ray or 4K, one of the special features in there is he recreates the insect cavern thing that was supposed to be in the original King Kong movie, the 1933 one, but it got destroyed and I couldn't fit. But he recreated it in black and white and stop motion and that. Kind of reminded me a bit like that with the creatures, the shadow monsters and that. So, but yeah, visuals are very nice as well. But my biggest highlight of the movie is the music. So they play a bit of rock, obviously. So you have two Guns N' Roses songs, obviously "Sweet Child of Mine," which they play in the trailer and that. So they play in the beginning of this movie as well when Thor's saving a people with the Guardians, planet with the Guardians, and at the end of the movie where Thor comes back with he's lost Stormbreaker, could go needed it to open up a portal to the Eternal, but he has Zeus's lightning bolt, and because every time Jane uses Mjolnir and turns into Thor, she gets weaker and weaker, so she couldn't get there with him, so he goes off on his own. But he empowers the kids there with a bit of his power to fight off the shadow monster, so he can try and get Stormbreaker back. And they do play the Slash solo part of November Rain during that scene, and fits it perfectly. And they do need to play a bit more rock music in these movies, I think. I think in the battle scenes, they totally suits the movies. It is, but also the more orchestrated version of the music as well. Kind of a rocking type of Viking music and all that. So yeah, for me the highlight of this film, my top highlight is the music for this movie. But yeah, overall I'm a little bit disappointed overall with the movie, but like I said, I enjoyed it because I think my expectations were so low in this movie. When I came out to the cinema, I really enjoyed it, but over the week now I'm more thinking of the dislikes of this movie, the more negatives, unfortunately it is. But overall I liked it. For me, it's the worst out of the 6 Marvel Phase 4 movies that have come out so far. So yeah, it's probably my least favourite out of the lot. It is, but not that I didn't like it, but like I said, too many. Being a fan of the comic, if you didn't probably read the comic, you'll enjoy this a lot more. But being a fan of the comic, unfortunately, yeah, the story and the heavy comedy kind of lets this movie down a little bit for me. If you like this review, give it a thumbs up. Leave a comment below and tell me what you thought of the movie. And if you'd like to see more reviews, I guess, please subscribe to my channel. I'll see you next time. Bye.